Welcome in, everybody. Another episode of Play Like a Jet live with you, Stadium. I'm Luke Grant. That's Clay Smarslock. Clay, it was a frustrating and disappointing game to watch. How are you feeling after the Jets Falcons performance on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, 9:30 start here in Florida. I was excited. I was excited to watch my Jets team hopefully give me a good start to my Sunday morning, and it went downhill pretty quickly. And
Yeah,
I was bummed. I mean, we got down 20-3 at halftime. And I was texting my buddy. I was like, you know what? The only thing that's giving me confidence is nothing about the team in itself. Like, the defense was bad, the offense was bad. Nothing about the team was giving me confidence. It was the fact that it was the Atlanta Falcons who were prone to giving up big leads. That was the only thing that gave me confidence in that game. And they did bring it back to within 3. Not that they earned it, but they did bring it back to within 3. And yeah, they didn't even get a chance to have the ball on offense in a one possession game at the end. So it was a little, it was a bummer. That's just how it is. I mean, unfortunately, they've had a rough, what, I don't know if you want to say quarter or a third of a season. It hasn't been ideal. They've been pretty much, even though they have 2 games that they lost within a touchdown, in my mind, they still got blown out in both those games.
correct.
So it's really just been one game that they were close, like legitimately close, and they ended up winning that game. So it's been a rough stretch, to say the least. And Sunday was, I guess, the cherry on top of that.
Yeah. And you want to talk about a rough week. I thought it was a really rough week for the Jets defense, particularly the play calling. Jeff Ulbrich has been really good. He's been fantastic the first 4 games of the season. Man, the first 2 touchdowns that the Jets allowed, the one to Kyle Pitts and the one to Hayden Hurst, I think it was, both of them had a defensive lineman on a zone blitz in coverage and got just attacked and abused. That was so frustrating because the coaching's been average on offense. It's been pretty good on defense, but on Sunday, the defense really struggled.
Yeah, it was very concerning to see John Franklin Myers covering Kyle Pitts on the touchdown, and then Bryce Huff covering Hayden Hurst on the touchdown. And then I think what's really concerning to me is I forget. Obviously, it wasn't a touchdown because Matt Ryan only threw 2. But there was one play where they had someone motion all the way to the other side, and not a single – I want to curse so badly right now. Not a single freaking person followed that receiver, and he was just wide open for the first down. And then you saw there was a couple plays at the end of the game. One in particular, third and 2. If we stop them, we get the ball back. Have a chance. I believe it was 20. I believe it was 17-20 at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3rd and 2, and you see Cordarrelle Patterson out there, and then you see the 2 cornerbacks fall back, and they just hike, throw it right to Patterson, and he just runs for the first down.
Yeah,
and it's just what? I was screaming at the TV, screaming like why are you dropping back? Like, it's 3rd and 2. Get in this guy's face. Get in his grill. Do something. And, of course, like, he was untouched pretty much for the first down. And, yeah, it was a rough go for Ulbrich, rough go for Saleh, and I'm sure we'll get into the offense. But, yeah, the defense was concerning. The pass rush wasn't quite there. I know you put out some videos within the last hour showing that Quinnen Williams actually did have, like, a pretty decent game. Like, he did get some pressure. But I think it was more so, and I kind of alluded to this before we hopped on. It's like Matt Ryan was getting rid of the ball like that.
He was.
And it wasn't really that, like, yeah, there were some plays where we just weren't getting in his face, and we had good coverage. But more times than not, hike, 1, 2, 3, throw, and it's just like that was it. And it makes it look worse that, like, we didn't get any sacks. But, like, no, I think it was really just Matt Ryan knew where to go with the ball, and I think one of the biggest reasons for that is Kyle Pitts was on his game. He had his rookie breakout game. And unfortunately, it was at the cost of the face of Play Like a Jet Live and Michael Carter II, which I think is another coaching mistake. Why are you putting a guy that's 5'9", 5'10" on Kyle Pitts, who's 6'6", has a wingspan like no other, and is an athletic freak? It didn't make a lot of sense. And Carter did play some of those catches pretty well. Like, Pitts. Yeah. He didn't make it easy for Pitts, but Pitts is just that good and that freaky to where, like, you have to have a better matchup for that.
Yeah, two things stood out to me. I remember in the first quarter, Kyle Pitts ran I don't know if you want to call it a slant or if it was more a post, but they asked Michael Carter pre-snap to back off in off coverage against Kyle
Yep, I
Pitts.
do remember
He
that.
just ran the slant. He was wide open. I don't know what you want your corner to do there. And then a guy at the cornerback room that I actually thought was fantastic was Bryce Hall. On the first drive, he had a couple of pass breakups. He had the tackle to keep them in 4th and 1 short of the sticks. Nearly had an interception before halftime where he almost brought it down after Quinnen Williams had a pressure. So I thought Bryce Hall was great, but even he struggled on Kyle Pitts. There was a crossing route across the formation. He was in perfect position, and Kyle Pitts stuck out the one hand and snagged it and then ran out of bounds. So the Jets did struggle with him. And as I expected, they struggled with Cordarrelle Patterson. It was a tough matchup, and they really didn't do a good job there, Clay.
Yeah, that was a name that I've focused on more so than Ridley, because we had the show before Ridley was announced that he was out. So even more so than Ridley, more so than Pitts, Patterson was the guy I was worried about. And obviously it seems that Kyle Pitts was the guy that we should have been worried about more so than anyone, especially me as a Gator fan. Like, I know what he could do. But yeah, Patterson, he had another good game. He had a good game as a receiver out of the backfield. He had a good game as a receiver out wide. And I know his average wasn't that great, but it seemed like he was getting 5 yards down the field before anyone was touched. Actually, if there's a bigger concern out of that game is that the offensive line for the Falcons was able to push our defense in the run game. And it seemed like we started to do a little better down the stretch. But in the beginning of that game, it seemed like they're 5-6 yards down the field before they're getting touched. Thankfully, they weren't really breaking too many tackles.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, I did not expect this. And I think that kind of just was the start of what was a really good offensive game for the Falcons.
Yeah, last one I'll touch on. I thought Jamien Sherwood was really good. We'll go more into him when we touch on the rookie class, but he had easily his best game of the season. Ward, who the Jets claimed off waivers from the Kansas City Chiefs in the preseason, he was the highest ranked or graded PFF player on defense, as Splash, our producer, was laughing about pre-show. So that was cool. He only played 12 snaps, but he was effective, batted down 2 passes. So we'll see if he gets worked in more opposite Bryce Huff, but the defensive line were definitely disappointing. Let's flip over to offense now, Clay, because it started poorly and it just got worse and worse. The first drive, 3rd down, bad snap. Zach Wilson snags it with one hand, rolls out, hits Jamison Crowder with a great ball. It's a drop and an illegal formation. Terrific. Good start. Then the second drive, Greg Van Roten gets driven back 7 yards into Michael Carter's lap. They're in 3rd and 12. He hits Ty Johnson, but they're one yard short of the first down. And from there, it just went downhill. It was a disappointing day.
Yeah. I know a lot of people want to go at LaFleur, and I think rightfully so. I think he definitely deserves some blame. But I think this game was more on Wilson than anyone else. He just had a rough game. I know there were some drops involved. Actually, I don't even know if there were multiple drops. I know the Crowder had the one, but that would have been called back regardless.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was inaccurate with some short, easy throws, which he has kind of been throughout the season. He's missed some throws that any NFL quarterback should be able to make. And I know people have been talking about it on Twitter. Scott kind of got involved with it, whether it's mental or physical. And I do think I think it's mental. I think it's mental. Because he's just like, and even Wilson hit on it. He's like, yeah, I just got to rip it. Like, I can't get in my head. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing that he's in his head. Like, you'd think like, oh yeah, he's in his head. He can just like snap out of it. But like, maybe it's not that easy. Maybe it's a bigger concern down the road, which we'll have to wait and see because we're still only 5 games in. But yeah, I mean, he had a rough game against a really bad defense. And I think that was the most concerning part because, like you mentioned on last week's show, like the Falcons were giving up 32 points a game.
Yeah,
and we struggled to get 20. Like we had some lucky breaks to get 20, and a lot of it was garbage time points. So I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things to be that need to be worked on, and I think one of the bigger things outside of Wilson is getting your playmakers on the field in Elijah Moore and Denzel Mims. I don't know the total snap count. I believe Moore played under 50% of the snaps. I know Mims played under 50% of the snaps.
Yeah.
If I'm guessing, he probably played under 25% of the snaps. So I think just getting those two guys on the field, and this bye week is going to be big. Like they have to figure out a way to get these guys on the field and get them the ball in their hands.
Here's the thing about Zach Wilson that is extremely interesting from a case study perspective. There are so many egregious short misses. You touched on the one to was it Jamison Crowder when he missed him on the little flare screen?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, he then missed the screen, which look, Morgan Moses was in a bad spot. But you look against Tennessee, you had he missed Ryan Griffin to end the game. He missed Corey Davis on the speed out, which also would have iced the game.
Yep.
But if you actually look at how he's performing when he gets rid of the ball less than 2.5 seconds, he's the 4th highest completion percentage above expected in the NFL. So it's this extremely weird mix of egregious misses, but actually a lot of good balls. So it's very confusing. But Clay, I'm excited to see the bye week and how that helps him because number one, he can get away and reassess, but also going back to California and to Utah and working with John Beck, I think is going to be huge for him and getting back to his roots. I'm not sure that says great things about the Jets coaching staff and where they're at right now, but I think it's exciting for Wilson to press the reset button, get back to what he did so well at BYU because, you know, there were throws early in the game. I touched on the drop that Crowder had. He had a slant to Corey Davis. He hit Crowder on and out. And I thought, okay, he's cooking. And then he just came out and started missing these short throws. So he'll put it together, but I definitely think it's mental as well.
Yeah, I don't want to put too much stock into saying that it's like not a great look for the coaching staff because maybe this is something that if it is mental, this is something that Wilson needs. Get away from New York, get away from the media, get back to your roots and work with a guy that helped you become the 2nd overall pick. So I think they're going to go over a lot. I don't think this is a vacation for Wilson. He might take a day or two to just unwind.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to be going to work, watching film and working on his mechanics and like what he can do to get better. He knows he needs to get better. He can't like he's had a few flashy plays, but he can't just ride on those. Like he knows this. Like I'm not saying anything that he doesn't know. He needs to continue to get better. And John Beck, I'm sure he's going to do everything in his power to make sure that his guy does improve for the following 11 games of the season or 12 games of the season.
The one thing I'll say about the play calling, which I found kind of ironic, is that the NFL Network flashed up a graphic that talked about Matt Ryan and how good he'd been off of play action and holding the ball longer than 3 seconds in those looks compared to Zach Wilson. And Zach had like 1 touchdown to 4 interceptions. His completion percentage was low. And the very next 2 plays in the first quarter, Mike LaFleur ran play action. Zach Wilson had no one open. He just dirted it behind Ryan Griffin. And then he threw the interception on the next play. I just want to see more rhythm early on. I complained about that in the Denver game too, but they need to figure something out there because I understand you've got an athletic quarterback with a great arm, but man, they're asking a lot of him. We'll see how that unfolds. Outside of that, Clay, offensively, I thought the offensive line was pretty good. I think Wilson might have been hit once, and that was when Morgan Moses let someone around the edge. Zach Wilson escaped, and then he kind of held the ball a little long. All in all, we'll touch on Elijah Vera Tucker. He was phenomenal, the highest graded PFF offensive lineman in week 5. He was just terrific in the run and the pass game. It's been so exciting to watch his development. He's your guy. And then I thought Crowder was okay. The wide receivers got open a little bit, but it just didn't click. Trayvon Wesco was terrible. So Nick will be happy about that when his jersey arrives in October. Was not good at all. Was laying on the ground, diving at people's feet a lot of the game, but disappointing all around. Any last thoughts, Clay?
No, I mean, I think it's really, I don't know. One thing I just don't understand about the play calling is like, especially with Croft out, like the tight end group is bad with Croft on the field.
Yeah.
But like with him out, it's even worse. And we're still running 12 and 21 personnel. Like it just, it just blows my mind that this is still a thing, even when we're down 10, 14 points. And then you see us, we're in obvious passing situations that we're doing play action.
Yeah.
Like,
I was laughing.
Yeah. And I saw you tweeted about it. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, obviously they're not. And Zach Wilson, apparently, like, he's not as good at selling the fake.
No.
He's not. He needs to get better. And I noticed it a little bit. Didn't notice it too much. Because that's like kind of one of the last things I noticed when I'm watching the game. But my brother texted me. This is like the first game he's watched since he's been out of since this season ended. He's like, "Have you noticed? Like he's not really selling the fake. He's bringing it back too soon." And then Dan Orlovsky comes out with that video yesterday or Monday, and he kind of just goes into Wilson and like not like the linebackers are not biting whatsoever. So, I mean, I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent with all this with the play calling, but I think just a lot of things are just not meshing together when it comes to execution, play calling, and honestly, just everything. But I am glad to see that Elijah Vera-Tucker is dominating the way that I thought he would. Like as you said, like he's my guy, and we're gonna get into it a little bit. But very, very exciting to see, especially when Mekhi Becton comes back in a few weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Last thing I'll say about the play action, because it's definitely noticeable. The two guys who I listen to pre-draft and watch a lot of their content are TJ O'Sullivan with the QB school, and also Tim Jenkins, who's a friend of the Play Like a Jet network. He's on the podcast with Scott every week. And both of them talked about the BYU tape and Zach Wilson's inefficiency in not getting the arm at full extension. So it's interesting. It's something that's definitely carried over. It's such a simple thing. But when you're trying to get linebackers to bite, that's what makes the San Francisco offense so fantastic. And when Jimmy Garoppolo was rolling in 2019, that's what we saw. So that's definitely an aspect he'll have to improve on. But Clay, let's pivot now to our 29% year in review of the rookie class, who, look, all in all, I think have been fantastic. This has been a really good class considering two of your top three picks have probably underperformed. We've talked enough about Zach Wilson. Let's move on to Elijah Vera-Tucker. He was the second pick. The Jets obviously traded up for him. Just some stats and context for people at home. So Vera-Tucker's overall PFF grade is 73. He's one of the highest graded rookie offensive linemen, up there with Rashad Slater and those guys. In his last 83 pass snaps, he has not allowed a pressure. He was the highest graded PFF lineman, as I mentioned, in week 5. Clay, it is coming together for him. He was playing well in the run against New England. The pass game was a little lacking. He is just coming on, in spades.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Panthers game was a little rough for him. It seemed like that was his worst game so far, primarily against Derek Brown. But he's really started to come on. And like people didn't, it seemed like people just forgot. He barely practiced. Like he missed the preseason. Like he didn't play. He barely practiced. That was his first game action against a really good player in Derek Brown. So yeah, I kind of expected some rust, but then he got back onto the field and continued to get better week in and week out. And these last 2 weeks have been his best 2 games. Granted, they're against 2 of the worst defenses we've played, but the Titans. I didn't even realize. Did Jeffrey Simmons play that game? He was definitely in, right?
Yeah, he played. Yeah.
So I mean, we know Jeffrey Simmons. He's one of the better interior linemen in the league, and I'm sure they faced off a bunch in that game. So
Grady Jarrett as well last week.
Yeah, Grady Jarrett. Yeah, of course, Grady Jarrett too. So it's been very good for my brand, to say the least. I needed it after a couple of my guys have not really played up to expectations so far. But AVT, he's been dynamite without Mekhi Becton playing next to him, and I think he's just going to keep getting better. And I'm looking at Wyatt Davis, who is a part of that trade to move up to 14. He has not played a single snap for the Minnesota Vikings, who don't have a very good offensive line. And then who was the Christian Darrisaw? And I'll look it up while I'm still talking.
Yeah, Kellen Mond hasn't played yet, obviously, as well.
Kellen Mond has not played yet. And Darrisaw, I know he's dealt with some injuries, so maybe, let's see. He's played 28 total snaps. 28 total snaps and 60 PFF grade. So I think as of right now, we're looking good.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Elijah Vera-Tucker was phenomenal. I mentioned Grady Jarrett. He had some great reps against him. It was his explosion and his athleticism in the run game again, Clay, being a pulling guard and working across to the right-hand side of the formation, and just the way he's able to get his hips around. He's so dynamic, and just his explosion from his hips, his feet was just, it's so impressive. And then in the pass game, his hand strength, his ability to anchor, all those things you love to see, he was phenomenal at. Keep an eye out on the Play Like a Jet YouTube. I'll have a review up of Elijah Vera-Tucker's week 5 game in the next 2 days, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks everyone also while I'm on it for supporting U Stadium and Play Like a Jet. You've got the U Stadium merches out. You've got the Lamar Jackson Leap shirt, the Zach Wilson Rocket Arm. You make sure you support them on YouTube. We're right here now. You've got Splashes Show with the Sports Desk. Nick, Frankie, they do a great job with Timeout. Support the network, some great college football shows. And then also us with the podcast, with our show and over on the Play Like a Jet YouTube. We've got some merch as well. I'm wearing a bit of a Zach Wilson Goes Long shirt now. So make sure you support our brands. We appreciate you being here as always. Super stickers, likes, comment, everything helps. Appreciate you guys. Clay, let's get back into it.
Yeah.
Third draft pick was Elijah Moore, a guy the Jets felt comfortable taking in the first round. He ended up falling to the second. We talked about pre-draft how excited we were to see him. As I watched more of him against Alabama and Florida, I started to think he was a better prospect than Rondale Moore and Kadarius Toney, who was a bad week for that, look with Kadarius Toney having a good week and obviously Rondale Moore being explosive. But an interesting stat the PFF had, they say that Elijah Moore's been open on 83% of his routes run in 2021, which is easily the highest of the draft class. So it kind of begs the question, why isn't he getting the football?
Wait, quick question. So you did say PFF, right?
Correct.
So why do they have him as a 56.5 grade if he's open
had the
that frequently?
I think he's had the dropsies as well, which has kind of hurt him.
He only had two drops. I think he only had 2 drops on the first game, right? Did he have another one?
Maybe, possibly.
I don't remember another one after that, but he also hasn't had many targets.
Yeah, correct.
PFF has him for 20 targets and 8 receptions for 66 yards.
Yeah.
And one of those was like a shovel pass or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't quite understand. I know he missed a game against the one game we won. He was out. And he's had opportunities. I mean, they've been playing him outside when Jamison Crowder's out. Like he was able to play inside and out. I think they need to get him more inside. Yeah. I think he can be a successful receiver on the outside, but get him where get him just walking first, and then he can start to run. I know people were so hyped about him when we drafted him. They were even more hyped about him when the beat writers were just going crazy about his play in training camp. But I still think that Elijah Moore is there. I still think it's there. And according to PFF, with that 83% open rate, he is that guy. It's just 1, Zach Wilson's not getting him the ball. 2, if he is throwing the ball towards him, he stepped out of bounds or he throws it out of bounds, or Zach Wilson underthrows it like he had on that touchdown pass. Like he had a touchdown. Yeah, easy. He beat the guys. He had 2-3 yards of separation, and Wilson just underthrew it. And I'm not gonna say like he had it. That's a far throw. Not only were they had to have been at like the 40-yard line. Wilson was also on the other sideline, and
correct.
Wilson was this way. Moore was this way. Complete opposite direction. That was a far throw. So I don't blame him for underthrowing it, but Moore did have the touchdown there. But I think, they need to find easier ways to get him involved, whether it's more screen attempts. Like I don't think he's had a single screen pass this entire season.
He's had 1 design touch in the 2021 season. How many has Rondale Moore had in Arizona? And I understand that Cliff Kingsbury runs the air raid, get the ball out of your hands quickly, screen offense, but you have to do more of that. Put him in motion, do something. How often are we seeing design touches right now for Braxton Berrios or Jamison Crowder in motion before the snap, and Elijah Moore's just standing still and they're asking him to go and run a route? I don't know.
Yeah, and I understand he's a better route runner than Berrios, but just because he's a better route runner than Berrios doesn't mean he's not also a better playmaker than Berrios with the ball in his hands. So it's just, I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense. They have a lot of things to figure out in these next 2 weeks.
They do. That is for sure. So that's Elijah Moore. Let's stick with the offensive rookies, which the Jets featured heavily in the first few rounds of the draft, and go to Michael Carter because, Clay, I think he's averaging 3.5 yards per carry, and you can just bin that because he's top 5 in forced missed tackles per rushing attempt. So Michael Carter has been effective. He's starting to get the red zone touches. But one more thing, and it sounds like I hate Matt LaFleur every single week. Why is Ty Johnson, who's a worse pass catcher, who's a worse pass blocker, on the field on third down every single week? I don't understand.
Yeah, it's every single third down, it's Ty Johnson. Heck, give me Tevin Coleman. Give me Michael P. Ryan. It doesn't have to be Michael Carter. But why Ty Johnson? And I know he's just not a good pass protector. And maybe I'm kind of just like maybe I'm making it worse in my own head because that one game was so putrid.
Yeah.
But still, it just doesn't make any sense to me as to why it's him every single time. Like, you can mix it up. Like, we know that Michael Carter's the number 1 back on this team now. Like, yes. I know before the season I said that it would likely be further into the season, like November, December. but he started taking it over late September, early October.
Yeah.
Like he's the lead back in this committee. Granted, it's still a committee. He's not like the bell cow or anything,
No.
but he's been the most impressive. I mean, he's breaking tackles. He's trying his best to carry defenders. I love him. I love Michael Carter. It's been very fun, and I don't care that he is at 3.5 or whatever yards per carry. What's going on, TJ? But like, how many times is he going to get the ball handed off to him, and the defender's right in his face? Like, it's happened way too many times, and that's the reason why he has a 3.5 yards per carry. It's not because of him. It's because the offensive line on occasion will just blow up, and then Carter's just there to get killed.
Yeah, people want to talk about how effective Nick Chubb and also Kareem Hunt have been as a backfield duo. In the same vein, Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, who are obviously the duo last year at UNC, they've both been fantastic. I think Michael Carter's forced 8 or 9 missed tackles already this year, which is up there, as I mentioned. So it's great to see both those UNC backs just look so elusive and great in open space. Hopefully, once Becton's back, they can go back to running left a whole lot more. So, it's been pretty impressive from Michael Carter. And while we're on the Michael Carters, I think, look, we may as well stay with it. It's the Michael Carter, the second show. So Michael Carter, 70 PFF grade, probably had his toughest performance of the season against Kyle Pitts. But all in all, he's done a phenomenal job with his yards allowed per reception, per target numbers. They're up there with the best in the NFL. He's commanded from the slot. He's been great in run support. You have to be pleased with what you've seen, Clay.
Oh my gosh, I've been so pleased with what I've seen. And Splash, if you can try to find his PFF grade from this last week, I'd appreciate that. But going into the week, Daniel Jeremiah had him in the top 25 all rookie team. Yeah, MC2. So yes, I've been very, very pleased with what he's done. And as you know, like, I'm a huge fan of his ever since we drafted him, and we talk about it every week, it seems like, until he decides to join us. But no, I'm very pleased with him in the nickel spot. Like, it was between him and Guidry. We didn't really know where they were leaning going into the season, but it's been Carter's job, and I don't think it's going anywhere for a long time. Run game, pass game. You've mentioned that he looks so patient in pass coverage. And I kind of touched on it a little earlier. He went against Kyle Pitts, a huge threat, physically and just everything else. And he did play it well. Like I said, Pitts is just a freak. Made some crazy catches. I know the one-hander was on Bryce Hall, but no, Carter was he was in his hip pocket. It's just there's only so much a 5'8" guy can do against a 6'6" freak of nature.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, Michael Carter's been phenomenal, and it's incredible because as soon as we watched the tape from Duke, both of us were talking to each other, Clay, off air, just kind of through the week before a show, and we were just so impressed by how good he looked against really good competition in the ACC. So Michael Carter II's been phenomenal. The next group is the linebackers. I think we should do these two together because now Hamza Nasruddin was playing early. He's on the injured reserve. And Sherwood was really struggling the back end of the preseason against the Eagles. He was falling off tackles. Yeah. He struggled against the Panthers. He got hurt. But Clay, I was really pleased because I didn't really notice him, I'll be honest, in the game. I wasn't really watching for Jamien Sherwood on defense. I went back and watched the All-22 for the first time this morning, and it was impressive. First play of the game, they threw a little pass to the sideline, tackle for no gain. They had a screen on the next drive. He snuffed it out. It ended up in an incompletion because Sherwood was all over it. Easily his best performance of the season. If he can become an average NFL starter, this class is looking phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I did not notice Sherwood at all.
Which is a good thing, I guess.
I guess it's a good thing. You could have told me that he didn't even step on the field. I would have believed you. Because it seems like Quincy Williams is just flying around everywhere. And then, of course, you can notice Mosley with that 57 in the hair, and he's around the ball all the time, too. So I just thought it was just those two guys primarily on the field at linebacker. And it seemed that PFF likes Sherwood the best out of the three of them. So, I mean, I'll have to start paying attention to his game and what he can do. Because he's going to be important. I mean, Terrell Davis, he should be coming back soon, but he's only on a 1-year deal. Mosley, I mean, going into the year, I thought that it was possible that he can get cut. I don't think he's going anywhere after this year just because they really need him. But yeah, I mean, Sherwood for the long haul, he could be an important piece. It give us one less position to have to worry about next year if he could step up. Because naturally, and he really struggled when he was on the field. And at the last 2 games before his injury, he wasn't even playing defense anymore. They took him off the field completely. So it seems like now it's Sherwood that will play along with Davis and Mosley. And then I'm guessing Quincy will just rotate however Sala and Ulbrich seem fit. But no, hey, if he can keep up, what was it, the 75 and 77 grades that Splash just put on the screen, if he can keep that up, I will be more than pleased.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tough position to play linebacker. I've talked about it a ton with the crossing routes and the cover 3 beaters and everything we're seeing in the NFL. It's fantastic to see him not giving up plays because Quincy Williams has such volatility in his play. You'll see him force 6 fumbles in a game and then give up, a crossing route or, just little things in run play and he'll drop his head quickly. But overall, Sherwood's done a really good job being consistent and that's important. Let's finish with the corners. Obviously, there's not much point touching on Jason Pinnock. He hasn't played. But Brandon Eccles, and I guess we can throw Dunn in there, who was an undrafted free agent. Brandon Eccles has been solid, I would say. I think he's been a below-average corner the last couple of weeks. He struggled against Denver. He had a couple of receptions allowed against Atlanta as well. But all in all, considering he's a rookie corner who, again, has missed time, had a concussion, I've been fairly happy with what I've seen from him as well.
Honestly, I have too. I mean, his grade isn't great, 50.1. And I'm looking, like PFF has him for 23 targets, 16 receptions allowed. I don't have the yards per catch allowed in front of me, but he's not getting beat like deep. Like when he is getting beat, it's kind of right in front of him, and he's there to usually make the tackle. Sure, he might be giving up completions, but I feel like he's been a pretty good player on the outside, and he's a raw player. Like he was my least favorite draft pick. I'm not gonna lie, he was my least favorite draft pick, and he's been a lot better than I expected. And I think he's only going to get better too. It's usually how it works. Usually don't tend to get worse or when you're that raw. But no, I've been impressed with him, and he's a part of the only cornerback, I believe, still part of the only cornerback group that has yet to give up a passing touchdown, and that's with a second-year player, Bryce Hall, first-year player, Michael Carter II, obviously Brandon Eccles, obviously Isaiah Dunn, who's an undrafted free agent this year. And it's a young secondary, and they still somehow haven't given up a touchdown, which is good because and we were giving up. It seemed like we were always giving up big plays last year, like from the cornerback position. I know we gave up one to Robbie Anderson, but that was from the safety. And it seems like the other big plays are all on screens. but no, I've been very impressed with Eccles. I know the PFF grade isn't there to back it up, but considering what my expectations were for him going into the season, I've been, I guess, blown away.
Yeah. I think all in all, guys, Clay and I'll speak for myself. I certainly expect Zach Wilson's going to be better after the bye. I think he's going to improve. Some of the intermediate and short accuracy will get there. And then I also think Elijah Moore is going to start finding the football. So when you consider the Jets' probably 2 most valuable draft picks, particularly on offense, have kind of struggled, and you've still seen 5 guys shine as starters, it's impressive. I know sometimes watching this football team is frustrating because the Jets are starting 7 rookies, 4 second-year players when you include Mekhi Becton, who will be back in a couple of weeks' time. There's 11 out of the 22 starters are kind of, 22, 23-year-old kids who have less than 2 years experience in the NFL. Neither of them, or none of those guys, have really seen a proper NFL offseason because of COVID. And the Jets are still competing, especially on defense. They have a lot of work to do on offense, but we have to be pleased with what we've seen from Joe Douglas because Huff, Hall, Becton, look, maybe even Mims, who's got 3 catches on 4 targets and 75 odd yards, but there's enough there in both classes to be excited about.
Yeah, I mean, last year, the 2020 class isn't looking great, but it's still early. That's the thing. Like, no, it might not be as good as we thought when we drafted some of these guys, but it's still very early in their careers. I mean, Mims has dealt with his injuries. Becton's dealt with his injuries. Every single player in that draft class has dealt with injuries. Literally every single one. So I'm not ruling out what any of those guys can do. And then this year's looking really solid. Obviously, it will kind of mean nothing if Wilson doesn't perform.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't like it seems like it won't even matter if AVT and Moore and Carter's and the Carters are like studs. If Wilson is not a good quarterback in this league, then this draft class was a bust. That's just plain and simple. But keeping Wilson out of it, the rest of the draft class as a whole has been really good. And I don't know if I want to say better than I expected. I mean, I guess so. Like I didn't expect Sherwood to do what he's done when he's on the field. Didn't expect Eccles, as we just touched on, to do what he's done. I expected AVT to be a stud right away, and Michael Carter, the running back, to be pretty good out of the gates. And even Michael Carter II, like I did expect him to be a good a good nickel cornerback in this league pretty early on. So yeah, I guess even with my relatively high expectations for this draft class, they've kind of exceeded it. And like I said, outside of Zach Wilson so far.
Yeah. Even on the 2020 class, I think the safety group looked much worse when Davis was off the field compared to when he was in. He had a couple of nice man coverage snaps on Kyle Pitts. The play where they threw to Kyle Pitts just after the Jets drew within 3 points, he was off the field. They had Niesman and someone else on the field, and they went both playing cover two high safeties. Both of them will fire to each other.
Yeah.
Horrible play. But I thought Ashton Davis, I didn't look at his PFF grade or anything like that, but I thought Ashton Davis looked pretty good considering he's still working back. So look, the Jets have got young players. We've got to be patient with them. We just want to see them have more than 74 yards in the first quarter across 5 games. I saw Rich Samini tweeted out this morning that the NFL average was something like 400 yards in the first quarter, and the Jets had 70 across their first 5 games. So they've struggled. Zach Wilson struggled, the offensive line, Mike LaFleur. It's a joint effort. They got to figure it out. But that's a discussion for another day, Clay. We're going to be back next week. There's no Jets football this weekend. We're going to be talking about superlatives and giving some awards for the first third of the season with the 17-game slate. Now, we'll be looking ahead to the Jets' second game against the New England Patriots. So it's going to be a quiet week, which isn't great coming off a loss.
Yeah. Sorry, I kind of tuned you out for a second there because I was reading Jets Gang's messages on the board. And he was saying that Colin Cowherd said that Robert Saleh should be fired. I mean, obviously, Belichick should ever deserve to be fired. If he's going to leave New England, he's going to leave on his own accord. But saying that Robert Saleh should be fired, like this guy just has it out for the franchise because they got rid of his guy, Sam Darnold. And don't get me wrong, I still love Darnold, but I can't stand Cowherd. He's good at his job. Let's just say that. He's good at his job. He knows how to get attention. I'm sorry. I tuned you out at the last second there because I read that comment.
That's fair enough to tune out after reading that. I think that's fair enough. To answer your question, TJ, look, I think Robert Saleh needs to be involved in some of the scripted play hasn't been good enough for me. I think that's the biggest thing because with a young quarterback, it's about rhythm. Look, he's not going to be in there coaching Zach Wilson, but I think the whole defensive staff needs to work with the offensive staff, who is relatively young outside of John Benson and a couple of guys, but they need to work with them with, look, this is what we do against what you're throwing on tape. Self-scouting is so important. The bye week's the time to do it. So I'm intrigued to see what particularly the scripted periods look like coming out of the bye.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I don't know how much Saleh's going to be involved. It seems like he's more involved in the offense than Rex Ryan ever was.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not saying much. I obviously with LaFleur being the offensive coordinator, he's not going to tell LaFleur what to do. Like he's going to have his input, and I'm sure he is. Like he's the head coach, and he's from the first day we signed him, he knew this is a team effort. He's not the defensive coordinator anymore. He wants to be the leader of the whole team. So I'm sure he's involved in the offense, and I'm sure he's part of the reason why Denzel Mims hasn't been getting on the field. But there might be more that needs to be done because averaging 3 points a first half through 5 games in the season is just, I mean, I want to say putrid. I want to say humiliating, but I don't even think those even do it justice. Like, it's just bad. Like, have they had a first half with over 120 offensive yards?
No, I don't think so.
I really don't think so. It's been rough.
Sorry to interrupt you. I want to just hit on what Hype is talking about here because, look, we're both on the same page with Denzel Mims. We've talked about it nearly every show. I was frustrated on Twitter earlier in the week because Bart Scott came out and said, we talked about Mekhi Becton tweeting out in the middle of the game, free Denzel Mims, and Mims didn't have a catch at that point. He just wants Denzel Mims to be on the field. Look, that's a reflection of the locker room. I'm sorry. People can say, oh, he's just supporting his buddy. An injured player tweeting out to tell the coaching staff to put someone on the field isn't just an insignificant thing to me. I've had a couple of beat reporters talking to Scott and talking to other people saying there's definitely friction between Becton, between Denzel Mims, and between the offensive staff. And that's not me just coming out pulling rubbish or trying to connect dots. You hear it in the press conferences. So anyway, let's leave that. I'll shelve that. That was just a rant.
Yeah.
But talking about Wilson's athleticism, you're right, because too often we're seeing play action, but they're straight dropbacks. They're not getting him outside the pocket very often. You saw it when he is, it's forced because of poor play from the offensive line, but we saw it on the rollout against Tennessee for the touchdown, and then we hardly saw it against Atlanta. You don't see many designed rollouts or these naked looks, so it's kind of frustrating, Clay.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and I think part of it might be because Wilson hasn't been good at play action. He's not selling it. And if he's not selling it, like there's no reason as to why the defensive end that he's going to roll out towards isn't going to bite. Like if he sees Wilson pull the ball back before he's even 3 feet away from the running back, he's not going to fall for it. He's going to be right there to contain Wilson and possibly be a sack or even worse. So, I mean, not that it's going to happen every time. I'm just saying like that could be part of the reason. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what LaFleur could be doing. But no, they need to use his athleticism. He is athletic. Like you draft him for a reason, and that was, or for many reasons, and that was one of them. But also too, like it seems like Wilson doesn't even want to take advantage of his own athleticism. Because how many times have we seen this season that he can run for a first down and then he decides to try to force a throw that's not there, throws it away. It seemed like the one time he did try to run last week when he got blown up. I don't know why. I don't know what he was doing there, but when he got blown up, he had Michael Carter. I believe it was Michael Carter. He had Michael Carter starting to break away because the defender that was covering him was going after Zach. So just like literally loft it, just loft it, and it's a big gain. So now I'm kind of going off again, but yes, use his athleticism, get Mims and more on the field more often. I mean, even though he's had a rough go around, I still believe in Corey Davis. I think he's just having kind of the yips right now. Jamison Crowder, I still really like his game, but there's a way to get all four of those guys on the field. Even Keelan Cole, like he's been productive when he's out on the field. Like they have good players. You just got to put them in the right positions, and Wilson has to get them the ball. Like because there's been times where they are open and Wilson just doesn't hit the man or doesn't see the man. So
my biggest tip would be take Ryan Griffin and Trayvon Westco off the field because Denzel Mims is a better blocker than both of them anyway. But look, we'll see what the Jets do. I think it's a really important time for the bye. They need to reload. Coaching staff, Wilson. We're going to see how they respond. Clay and I are going to be back next week for Play Like a Jet Live. We'll be here on Wednesday nights. Make sure you check that out. Make sure you're checking out the rest of U Stadium's content. I already prefaced all the other shows. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, following on the social media platform. You've got the app, the merchandise stories on there. And then, as I said, supporting the Play Like a Jet team, Clay, myself, Scott, Kayla, so many great people doing work on the website and over on the YouTube channel. There'll be a review on the Jets' coaching performance against Atlanta, one on Zach Wilson, and then one also on Elijah Vera Tucker. Check out all of those things. We will check you out next week, 8:15 p.m. on Wednesday. Clayton Smarslock, Luke Grant, Play Like a Jet Live. We'll see you then.